So today we will build a simple but very effective 303 type voice with a synthesizers.com collection. This is what it will sound like. So we will start with the oscillator. We have of course a few waveforms we can use. This we will send to the filter. In this case we will go with the pulse wave, but of course you can use also a saw wave if you want to get a different sound. Now to control the amplitude of this, we will use the amplifier, and of course we will use the low pass output, and this we can already send to the mixer from the amplifier output. Now to sequence things, we will use the sequential controller. I will use a multiplied by 4 clock that I have here, right? I'm using BPM of 127 and I have a multiplied by 4 clock. This will go to the external input, set this to external, and then I can just hit start, right? And we get the sequencer runs with that each step is a 16th note. But I want to have 3 sequences. I'm going to set it here to 3 times 8. Right, and now we have 3 sequences, each with 8 steps. And just to make sure that things later on stay in sync, I can send also the reset from the clock to the start input. Right, so later on I can also sync things. Now we need also an envelope to control the amplifier, right? So this will go to the control input. I have here the control level already all the way up. And now the main gates from the sequencer will gate the envelope, and we already have sound. Right, we can take the oscillator an octave down. And let's use another envelope, right? I will add another one to control the filter. So this will go to the cutoff CV input here, or the frequency CV input of the filter. And this will be our accent envelope, right? If I open this a bit, right, I can trigger the envelope and we get accents. Now this we will gate with the first sequence, right? With the first bank here, but we are not using the gate output. We will use the bank output, so we can choose on which steps we have accents. Right, so this will go to the gate input. And now let's go, for example, we will have a gate open on steps 1 and 2, or the gate will stay open on steps 1 and 2. Then let's have another gate on 4, right, and maybe another one that will stay open on 6 and 7. Right, and let's take the envelope a bit down so it's a bit more snappy. Also the sustain from the amplitude envelope we don't really need. Right, but now we have the accents. And of course, to get this beautiful 303 sound, all we have to do is raise the resonance. Right, so we get this already. Now let's sequence pitch. So we will use, I want to stay in a certain scale. I will use the quantizer bank. I have it already set to, of course, a minor scale. You don't have to use a quantizer if you don't want to. Right, but then we will use bank 2, right, or the second sequence here. Pitch will be yellow. This will go to the quantizer and then to the volt per octave of the sequencer. And let's have changes in notes, for example, on steps. Let me open the filter a bit so we can hear it also. Steps, let's say 2. Right, and then let's say 6, 7 and 8. And of course, another aspect of the 303 is glide, right? Adding smooth transitions between the notes. So in this case, we will use the slew limiter module that I have here. Of course, we have also built-in glide or slew on the sequencer, but this will have an effect only on the main output. We are using in this case the second sequence, so it will not have an effect. Right, so after the quantizer, the pitch will go to the slew limiter and then back to the oscillator. Right, let's have a nice slew amount. Right, maybe something like this. Right, and now I want to control when this will happen. By the way, I have here the direction set to both, but I want to control when this will happen, and this I can do with this CV input or button. Let me show this again. Right, if I click it, right now we have nothing. If I let go, it opens. Right, so if I use an external signal, I will use bank 3. Now by default it's off. And now I can choose on which steps I want to have glide. So let's say on 2 and 3. Right? So now only on these steps we have glide. Right, so we have already a nice sound, but I found that using noise can warm up the sound a bit. So if I use the noise module here, I will use white noise to modulate the resonance. Right, I will open it all the way, without and with. Right, I find that it's a bit warmer, especially when you take the resonance up. Again, without and with. Right, we have a slight, very subtle change in sound, but I found it adding just a tiny bit of warmth to the sound. Now we can add some sand reverb. I have here plateau as my sand reverb as always. Oh yes. Right, and we can of course add also distortion and delay to get a full experience. Right, so I'm going to send this from the amplifier, the output, to the distortion. Already I'm going to send the clock, also the main clock, to the delay just to sync it. Right, and now if I right click the outputs of the distortion, I can connect it directly to the delay. If I right click the outputs of the delay, I can connect it directly to the mixer. Maybe take the mix down a bit. Right, add some feedback. Oh yes. Right, we get a really nice sound here. Okay, now for context and for fun, of course, let me mute this for a second. We can add, for example, a bass drum, again with the synthesizers.com collection. This works quite nicely. So we will need another oscillator and another amplifier, right? So we can control its amplitude. In this case, let's start with a sine wave. Right, and this will go also to the mixer. So we have here another channel for the kick drum. Then we will use two envelopes. We will use one envelope to control, let's use this one, to control the amplitude. Right, both envelopes we will gate with the main clock. So we have 4 on the floor. If I hold Control and Shift, I can just take another cable here, another copy. Right, so already we get sound. Of course, this is drum synthesis or a kick drum. We don't need sustain. No need so much of release, more attack. Right, something like this. And the second envelope will control or will modulate the pitch to get this hit in the sound. Now I found that exponential FM works better than linear. For example, here we have linear FM, but we have here also exponential FM. So the second envelope will go to the exponential FM input here with the attenuator. Also here, no need for sustain, no need for release, really more attack or shorter attack. Take the oscillator, of course, maybe 2 octaves down. Right, and then all we need is to play with the envelopes. Listen to this, and also with the modulation amount. Right, we can take this frequency even lower. Right, something like this. And also here we have hard sync and input for hard sync. So if you want the oscillator with each hit heat to start at the same phase. Right, to have more consistent results, all I have to do is again hold Control and Shift, take another cable here from the clock and send this to the hard sync input. Right, and now we have more consistent results. Right, the phase will stay the same with each hit. Right, let's listen to this together with the bass voice. Let's see, let's bring it in. So we have also a kick drum, and again, just for fun and for context, let's add also an open hi-hat, right on the offbeat. So what we will do, we will use two oscillators in this case. Right, both of them will go to another filter. We have here a built-in mixer on the filter, and we will use two pulse waves. Right, bring the level up. Right, and then we will need also to control their amplitude with another amplifier, and of course also an envelope to control, right, the amplifier. We will use a bandpass filter in this case. Right, again, we have something quite snappy, so no need for sustain, no need for release. Right, this can go already to the mixer, and now to get this offbeat rhythm, we have here on clocked another channel. It's multiplied by one, so it's the main clock, but we can delay it. If we delay this by an eighth, right, we get an offbeat rhythm. Let me just, again, sync everything with the reset. Right, so this will trigger this hi-hat. Right, and now the trick here is to cross FM both oscillators until we get noise. Right, so let's use, for example, triangle from one oscillator, and maybe let's go with a sine wave for the other oscillator. We can change this later on. Right, change their frequency a bit, and then start adding FM. Right, so we get interesting noise. It's a bit too loud. Right, maybe even snappier. Right, it's even a bit of a clap-like even. Maybe we can use, instead of a sine wave, a pulse wave. Right, so it's all about finding the sweet spot here, and of course resonance on the filter. And maybe to make this a bit more open hat-like, we can reduce the decay but open the attack a bit. Right, something like this. Change the frequency. Right, and now we have also, maybe this a bit louder. Right, and now we have also a open hat on the offbeat. Right, and this was quite fun. I hope you also enjoyed the process. If you build it yourselves, please feel free to share your results with us. Thank you for watching. Cheers!